Moving along to home runs, obviously, Shohei Ohtani leads the league, leads the universe, leads the world, everything. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Valentine Sport Show. I'm your host, Frank Rampin, and we're going to do another solo episode this week. So this week, we got a couple things to talk about, a lot of things to talk about, actually. A very eventful week in the world of baseball. So we're going to talk about the All-Star break, talk about the Home Run Derby, talk about the All-Star game, those surprise events that happened, those surprise winners of maybe one of those things, the MVP of the All-Star game, that's for sure. We're going to talk about the MLB updates at the halfway point, as this is the All-Star break going into the second half of the season. We'll talk about a bunch of those different division matchups going into the second half, and then I'll make a prediction for each division at the end of this episode. So stay tuned for that one. So we'll start off with our past week recap, and first thing we'll talk about is the All-Star break. So the first thing that happened on this All-Star break, obviously, was Monday night, was the Home Run Derby. And the winner of the Home Run Derby, if anyone hadn't seen, was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So great job to Vladdy. And actually, his dad, Vladimir Guerrero Sr., won the Home Run Derby in 2007, making it the first time ever that a father-son duo has won the Home Run Derby. So pretty cool stuff there. We'll get more into that later. We'll talk about the Home Run Derby. We got a whole All-Star segment. And then the All-Star Game MVP is Elias Diaz of the Colorado Rockies. The first time a Colorado Rocky has ever won MVP of the All-Star Game. And the fourth most long shot player of all the players listed as All-Stars to win MVP going into the game. So pretty crazy stuff, pretty unexpected stuff. And the National League came home with the win, obviously, on the Elias Diaz two-run home run in the top of the eighth inning. This was the first win by the National League in the All-Star game since 2012. So 9 years in a row. It was the second longest streak by any team in All-Star game history by the AL, 9 years in a row. So the first time they won since 2012. And a couple things that were going on in 2012, that was the first year that Bryce Harper and Mike Trout made All-Star appearances. So think about that. They were both, I think, 19 years old when that happened. They're both going at their 30s years old now. Mike Trout's a dad. So that's pretty crazy to think about. So that's how long it's been since the National League has even won the All-Star game. So pretty cool. We'll get more into that later. So we have the first combined no-hitter in Detroit Tigers history. That happened the other day. So the Tigers, in their storied franchise, they've had 9 no-hitters in its history, and this is the first time that it's ever been combined. So that's pretty crazy to think about, that the Tigers have had 9 in total, but this is the first time that the starting pitcher didn't go the distance. So that's pretty crazy. That shows you how baseball's changed over the years. Probably it's been a while since the last. Actually, Spencer Turnbull threw one a couple years ago. So good stuff there for the Tigers. Matt Manning started that game off with 6 2/3 innings without a hit before he was taken out with 2 outs in the 7th inning. Jason Foley stepped in to get the final out of the 7th, followed that with a hitless 8th as well. And then Alex Lang came in, the Detroit Tigers closer, came in and he was forced to face the top of the order. So that top of the order of the the Toronto Blue Jays is not so easy. Like we talked about before, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is in that top 3. He had to face him last. Home Run Derby winner. Bo Bichette led off, so that's another All-Star right there. And those two guys hit around Brandon Belt, so another solid hitter. So he faced Bo Bichette, got him Brandon Belt, and then had to face the Home Run Derby champion, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., got him to ground out to third to complete the first ever combined no-hitter in Detroit Tigers history. So pretty cool stuff there. Great stuff for Matt Manning, Jason Foley, and Alex Lang. As it's been a pretty tough season for the Tigers overall, but I mean, who knows? They're only 5 games out of the hunt in the Central, and the AL Central is completely up for grabs. So anything can happen there, and that could kickstart them to go into the right direction. So another headline we have here in our past week recap is, of course, Elly De La Cruz, because he just, again, does the unthinkable whenever he steps on a baseball field. He truly is becoming a must-watch talent every single night. It's getting to be ridiculous. So they were playing a huge series against the Brewers that I touched on last week's episode, starting Friday. They played a 3-game set. They actually ended up losing the set 2 games out of 3. But on Saturday, with the game tied 5-5, late in the game, I believe it was the 7th inning, Elly De La Cruz was in an 0-2 count, and he ripped an RBI single into the 5-hole, into left field to just a score TJ Friedl from third base. So then he's on first after he just drove in the go-ahead run late in the game. What does he do 2 pitches later? Takes off without a very, very, not a close play. He was in there. He's the fastest man, quote unquote, in the world. So he steals second base 2 pitches into the next at bat. What does he do next pitch? Gets an unbelievably huge jump. Takes off for third, right? Takes off for third. Takes off for third. There's not even a throw made to third. He's just there standing up. He's got no chance. So the catcher, William Contreras, looks at him. I'm pulling up the video right here. We're going to have it for you too. So he takes off for second. This throw from Willie Contreras is pretty good. One-hop throw on the bag. De La Cruz is in there safely. No chance. Not a chance. So after that, he's like, all right, I'm going to just chill out here for a sec, fix my hair, do a couple of this. William Contreras is like, oh, geez, what am I doing now? Oh, boy. De La Cruz brushes off the pants, get himself ready. And what does he do now? The next pitch, he gets an absolutely ridiculous jump, and he would have beat Brian Anderson to the bag anyway because they were shifted slightly. But Brian Anderson didn't even try to go to third base. He beat him to the bag, and William Contreras didn't even have a chance to make a throw. Ridiculous stuff. And Elly De La Cruz just decides to round third, fix his helmet a little bit, fix his hair, do a little bit of this, put his helmet back on, and he sees William Contreras flip the ball back to the pitcher. And he sees the pitcher kind of just turn around, not really paying attention to him. He sneaks off a little bit more, and then he just breaks for the plate. And the pitcher turns around, he's got no chance, throws it wild home, De La Cruz slides in safely. So he just drove in the go-ahead run, stole second and third and home in 2 pitches. People don't do that. What Elly De La Cruz does, he does whatever he wants. He gets hits whenever he wants. He just runs the bases wherever he wants. He just steals home. He stole third base and home in 1 pitch. In 1 pitch. What an absolute specimen. Nobody does these things that he does. Nobody does them. He's an absolute freak of nature. Absolute freak of nature. So we'll get more into the Reds. We'll get more into Elly De La Cruz. But what a ridiculous highlight from the 21-year-old. Like, what a ridiculous. And he became the second player in the expansion era to steal 3 bases in 1 plate appearance. And he was the youngest player ever to do that. So, I mean, what he's doing is just ridiculous. So, moving on to the last couple of segments of the past week recap. Whoa. The first one will be the AL Player of the Week. This past week, Logan Gilbert was the AL Player of the Week. He made 2 starts. In both starts, he got the win, was 2-0. He pitched 16 innings in those 2 games to a .56 ERA with 13 strikeouts and no walks. So, wow, crazy, crazy week there for Logan Gilbert. And on the 4th of July, he had his first career complete game CG. So, nice job there. And then we'll move on to the NL Player of the Week, was Manny Machado. So, in the 6 games this week, Manny Machado hit .478 with 4 bombs, 13 RBIs, and an OPS of 1.599. A basically 1,600 OPS throughout the week. So what a ridiculous line there for both Gilbert and Manny Machado. So great job for both of them to win their respectively Player of the Week. So moving into the last section of this week's recap, and this is probably my favorite section of the recap, the Outfield Play of the Week. And if you're going to believe this, right, last week, our Outfield Play of the Week was Cedric Mullins making an unbelievable catch on the warning track up against the wall to rob Byron Buxton of extra bases. And this week, we have a play of Cedric Mullins running back to the wall and robbing a would-be 3-run home run of Byron Buxton. So the same 2 dudes, same guy who hit the ball, same guy who made the play. So here we go, Outfield Play of the Week. Buxton up, smokes one into the left center field gap. Cedric wasn't playing that deep. He breaks back to the wall, takes a couple peeks again, leaps, and makes an unbelievable, fully extended catch. And Buxton, yet again, is standing out there asking him, dude, come on, man. Are you kidding me? Look at this catch. He's basically pulling that all the way over the wall as he crashes in. Unbelievable outfield play over the past couple weeks from Cedric Mullins. So 2 weeks in a row, Cedric Mullins is our Outfield Play of the Week. And 2 weeks in a row, it was against Byron Buxton. So pretty crazy stuff there. Pretty wild. So that wraps up our past week recap. So now we're going to move on to our All-Star Weekend recap. So, obviously on Monday night, the home run derby happened, and a lot of highlights. A lot of highlights with that. So the derby started off with Randy Arozarena versus Adolis Garcia. And that matchup was, I mean, it was nice on paper because they're childhood friends. They're both Cuban. Like, they've known each other forever. They both came up in that Cardinals organization before they split up to their respective teams. But that was a great on-paper matchup, but it was kind of real because Randy Arozarena, he's a gamer. He hit 24 home runs first. And then Adolis Garcia, he was showing you his raw power, but, I mean, his BP thrower kind of had a tough time. He did. I'm not going to lie. His BP thrower kind of did him a little bit dirty, and he kind of struggled. There's a couple guys. You'll see that's kind of a trend with a couple of these guys here. I mean, it's a little tough, especially when you go first sometimes. So the next matchup was a very, very intriguing matchup between Adley Rutschman, who was the actual 8 seed of this, the last seed in the home run derby, versus Luis Robert Jr., who was the 1 seed. So Adley went up first, right? And Adley had his dad throwing to him. Everyone knew that his dad was throwing to him. I touched on that last week. So Adley's dad was throwing to him, lefty, and he started hitting lefty, and he had a really solid round. He had 21 home runs from the left side. It looked like his dad had a little bit of struggle, but I mean, it's his dad throwing to him in the home run derby. It was still awesome. Adley Rutschman hit 21 home runs. And then they come back for his bonus time. He had 30 seconds of bonus time because he didn't hit 2 over 440. And he decides to switch around to the right side in his bonus time round. And then he just comes up from the right side, and it looked like his dad just locked in from there, and so did Adley. He started just throwing lob BBs right in the same spot, and Adley was tanking them out. He hit 7 home runs in 8 swings from the right side in that 30-second bonus round. That's unbelievable. That was one of the coolest things that I've ever seen. Adley Rutschman, that was the most home runs ever in a single home run derby by a switch hitter, and he only played in 1 round because eventually the raw power of Luis Robert Jr. was just too much. And he actually hit the longest home run of the derby during his round. He hit a 484-foot bomb in his round. That was just ridiculous. Ridiculous. That ball just came off his bat like it was nothing. So Adley, I wish you were able to get a better draw, honestly, because Adley had an unbelievable. That might have been the most exciting thing I've seen. I'm a switch hitter, so I have more appreciation for that because that's a very tough thing to do, especially just changing from left to right like that. He did it like it was absolutely nothing. That's a very hard thing to do. So Adley, props to you. That was unbelievable, dude. So moving on to the other side of the bracket, the next pick. So if you guys watched last week, you know that my home run derby pick was Mookie Betts. Not sure how that went out for me. He hit 11 home runs, so not too good. And he was put up against Vladdy. So that's kind of a tough draw, if you ask me. So Mookie came up there. He was respectable, but Mookie was just spraying the ball. He said it himself. It was funny. He said, or who came up there? J.D. Martinez was telling him to try to pull the ball, and he's like, I can't. I don't know how. So that's pretty funny. Mookie loved it. He said beforehand he wasn't expecting to win anyway. So good stuff there from Mookie. I'm so glad that he did it. He said that his wife wanted him to. But he hits 11 home runs in the first round, and Vladdy easily hit a 21. So Vladdy moved on to the second round. And then the final matchup of the first round was maybe the most intriguing one of the first round. It's a rematch from last year where Julio Rodriguez took out Pete Alonso in the, I believe it was the second round, the semifinal. I'm not sure about that. But this year they're drawing in the first round, and Julio comes up, and Julio sets a home run derby record with 41 home runs in a single round. And the crowd was jumping. Julio. Julio. It was packed house. Everyone on their feet screaming his name. He was going nuts. Rapid fire swings. It didn't look like he got tired for a second. His swings in the last 30 seconds were as good as his swings in the first 30 seconds. Julio absolutely electrified that crowd at T-Mobile Park during his first round and smoked 41 home runs for a derby record in any round. So that happened. The crowd was going nuts. It was unbelievable. And then Pete had to come up and hit. And if you guys didn't know, if you've watched previous derbies, Pete is a two-time champion, right? He was looking to be the second person ever, to win 3 home run derbies behind Ken Griffey Jr. But Pete's BP thrower, who throws to him every year, who's absolutely money, got hurt. He had a forearm problem, so he couldn't throw in this one. So he had a new BP thrower, and he was not very good. Pete still managed to hit 21 home runs, but that's to Pete's credit, if we're going to say honestly. Like, his BP thrower did him dirty. Pete, you didn't really have a chance there, but Julio almost made it almost out of reach to begin with. So I don't know what Pete was going to do even if he had the best BP thrower in the world, because Julio just had that place jumping, had the home crowd behind him, and that was just ridiculous. So then they moved on to the second round. It was the first semifinal matchup was between Luis Robert Jr. and Randy Arozarena. And I believe Randy went first, and Randy had a very, very good round, the second best round of anybody in this entire home run derby. He popped off for 35 home runs in that second round. So a great round there for Randy. And Luis Robert Jr., you expected him to come out and do the same thing he did in the first round. But he didn't look the same. And maybe we know why now, because afterwards, I believe it was the next morning, the morning of the All-Star game, it was announced that Luis Robert Jr. had a calf strain or some sort of calf tightness happen during the first round of his home run derby. So he got a little banged up during the derby. So that's never what you like to see. But he still managed to hit 22 home runs in that semifinal round. So still a respectable round there. But Randy was able to beat him very, very handedly. So that other semifinal was Vladdy versus Julio. And Julio had to go first in this one. And Julio, he looked a little bit tired. He looked like maybe that first round took a lot out of him because he was just rapid fire swinging, 41 home runs in 4 minutes. Like, that is unheard of. So Julio was kind of gassed. He only got to 20. And Vladdy came up there, tied him in the regulation period. And then he hit the last one in with plenty of time to spare because he had a whole minute because he hits bombs. He hit 240. So Vladdy finished with 21 and moved on to the final to face Randy. So then Vladdy comes off and he's gassed. He just hit 21 home runs. He moved to the final. They're like, all right, you're up in 5. And he's like, what do you mean? Vladdy had 5 minutes in between the semifinal round and the final round to hit because he hit first in the final. And then what did he do? After that 5-minute break of being absolutely gassed, he hit 25 home runs in the final, which is a record for a final round in a home run derby. That's pretty impressive. Afterwards, in the post-game, if you call it a post-game, the post-derby show, he said that he couldn't walk. He was so gassed, he couldn't walk. He was so done. He needed to go to bed. But so he hits 25 home runs, and then Randy comes up, and he needs to tie that or beat him. And he gets to about 18-ish with about about 30 seconds to go. And then he hits the 2 to make it 23. And he gets there, and the announcers think he's got it. Ravitch and Eduardo Perez thought that he got it. But he ended up hitting a bunch of fly balls that were just missing, a couple pop outs, a couple ground balls, and Vladimir Guerrero ended up closing it out with the victory, 25 home runs over 23 home runs for Randy. So great job there for Vladdy. He wins the home run derby. But a lot of amazing highlights from that home run derby. And like I said before, Julio Rodriguez hit 41 home runs, which is a record for any round in any home run derby. He beat Vladdy's semifinal round in 2019, actually, of 40 home runs. But in that semifinal round, Vladdy had 2 swing-offs, and he hit 3 home runs during the 2 swing-offs. So that's pretty crazy that Julio hit strictly 41 home runs in 4 minutes. That's ridiculous. So the longest home run of the Derby was 484 feet by Luis Robert Jr. That was what we talked about. Adley hit the most home runs by a switch hitter. He hit 21 from the left side and then 7 out of 8 swings in bonus time from the right side. Ridiculous. Randy Arozarena was the first Rays player to make it to a home run derby final. Vladdy was the first Blue Jays player to win the home run derby. The derby's been around since 1985, just so you know that. Get the reference there. So Vlad had an interesting thing going on where he was changing his bat. He had a bigger barrel bat that was, I guess, a little bit heavier, a little bit more top heavy, that he would use for pretty much usually the entire regulation round. Sometimes he'll switch at the timeout. But then he would use this other bat that was much lighter and helped him get the bat through the zone and keep his stamina up and keep hitting home runs when he was tired. So maybe that strategy helped him. I mean, obviously that strategy helped him. He ended up winning. But maybe some other guys should take that into consideration. So, moving on from the home run derby, we'll go over to the All-Star game. This was the 93rd edition of MLB's All-Star game. So pretty cool stuff. So the starting lineup for the National League was Ronald Acuna Jr., starting in right, Freddie Freeman at first, Mookie Betts in center field, pretty interesting. So this year Mookie has played right field, which is his primary, second base, shortstop, and now center in the All-Star game. Pretty cool. And then J.D. Martinez batted fourth, DH, so that's 3 straight Dodgers there, Freddie, Mookie, and J.D. And then moving on to Nolan Arenado playing third. Luis Arias started at second, and he ended up having a great day for himself. But we'll get into that. Sean Murphy was the catcher, starting catcher for the National League. Corbin Carroll came in. He started in the left. What am I saying? And he was the 10th NL rookie to start the All-Star game in All-Star game history. And the shortstop for the National League was Orlando Arcia. And the starting pitcher was Zach Gallen from the Arizona Diamondbacks. And he looked pretty good. He had a very good day for himself. So moving over to the American League, Marcus Semien started at second. Shohei Ohtani, obviously, the DH, hit second. Randy Arozarena got the start in the 3-hole playing left field. Corey Seager played shortstop. Yandy Diaz at first, who had himself a good day. Adolis Garcia played right. Austin Hayes started the game in center. Josh Young started at third, and Jonah Heim did the catching for the first half of the game for the American League. And the starting pitcher for the American League was Garrett Cole. And it was the first Yankee to start an All-Star game since Roger Clemens. And that time, that game that Roger Clemens started the All-Star game was back in 2001. And 2001 was the last time the All-Star game was in Seattle. So this time, Garrett Cole starts the All-Star game in Seattle, and the last time a Yankee started was Roger Clemens, 2001, in Seattle. So pretty crazy stuff there. And the Rangers had 5 starters after Adolis Garcia was named after the replacement for Aaron Judge. He was named as an outfield starter, and so that made it Adolis Garcia, Jonah Heim, Marcus Semien, Josh Young, and Corey Seager. So 5 All-Star starters was the most by a single team since the 1976 Cincinnati Reds. And that's the Big Red Machine Cincinnati Reds. Like this guy right here. Like that's pretty crazy stuff. So those 5 starters for that Big Red Machine team were obviously Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, Dave Concepcion, and George Foster. So getting into the action that happened during the All-Star game, I mean, right off the bat, top of the first inning, Ronald Acuna's up, and you're expecting him to swing first pitch, but Garrett Cole yanked it wide for ball 1. Second pitch of the game, just as Joe Davis was talking about how Acuna has a chance to be the first person ever to have a 40-80 season, Acuna smokes a ball that I thought was out. I thought he homered on the second pitch of the All-Star game. But it drove Adolis Garcia back to the track. You could tell that he was struggling with that sun. He was in a field of sun. He kind of sized it up a little bit, turned over his shoulder, and made a leaping catch at the wall at, like, unbelievable catch. Second play of the All-Star game, highlight, unbelievable. So then, Freddie Freeman comes up, second batter. And what does he do? Smokes another one opposite field. So 2 opposite field liners, same thing pretty much, to the other warning track, and Randy Arozarena goes back and makes another leaping catch at the wall. So the first 2 outs of the All-Star game were highlight reel catches. And it was ridiculous. Just such an amazing start to the game. Ridiculously entertaining first half inning. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Awesome. Awesome stuff. So then in the bottom half of the first, they had Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman mic'd up at the same time. And it was awesome. It was just must-watch TV. If you didn't see that, you got to go back and watch it on YouTube. It was unbelievable. Mookie is so funny. So is Freddie Freeman. But them together, oh, it was so good. It really was so good. Mookie is so funny. The best part about it was Mookie they started off by asking Mookie questions. They started off at that, and you didn't even really know that Freddie Freeman was in it either. So it was just like them talking to Mookie, and they asked Mookie what he thought about Shohei Ohtani. Like, what do you think about Shohei Ohtani? You ever heard of him? And he started talking about him, how amazing he is, and how just he can't do what he does. He wishes that he could, but nobody can do that. It's just Shohei. And Joe Davis says something about how hard he hits the ball and something like that. And out of nowhere, he's not on the screen. All you see is Mookie and Shohei. And Freddie goes, I hope he doesn't hit it to me. First thing that Freddie says on the broadcast. It was so funny. So if you haven't seen that clip, you got to go back and watch it because Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman are just gold. So funny. So during that mic'd up segment, they're talking about how Freddie is talking about how Randy Arozarena just robbed him of a hit because he just made a nice catch off him against the wall. And they're joking in the broadcast about how Freddie should get somebody to go into his locker and steal his boots. And as Freddie is saying that, Randy smokes a liner into left field, and he's like, gosh darn it. And they want him to talk to him when he gets to first, and Randy gets over to first. And Freddie goes up to him, and he's like, dude, you can't be taking away hits and getting hits too, dude. That's not fair. Like, what's going on here? And you can hear Mookie in the background just dying laughing. So that was just unbelievable. Great stuff there. And Freddie is still talking about Randy, like talking about like how he's like, oh my God, this guy, are you kidding me? And he's like, oh my God, he's stealing. So he starts running, and Sean Murphy hoses him, throws an absolute dot, one hop throw on the bag, tag onto Randy's forehead. 193 pop time. We got the video here for you. Unbelievable throw from Sean Murphy. So, former A, making things happen in the All-Star game. That made Freddie a little bit happier after Randy robbed him of a hit and got a single. So, pretty good start for Randy up until that. So, a very, very eventful first inning in the All-Star game. I'm sitting there like, this is awesome. This is unbelievable TV. Let's go. And what do? The next half inning, Nathan Eovaldi is mic'd up on the mound while he's pitching. And it was awesome. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, he was, like, whispering to them. He was, like, talking to them while he's pitching, like, telling them what he was going to do. It was great. You got to watch that one, too. But, so in that top of the second inning, when Eovaldi was mic'd up, Nathan Eovaldi, obviously a Texas Ranger, having an unbelievable season this year with that squad of Texas Rangers who are also having an unbelievable season. So this was the third time. So that obviously there was 5 starters for the Rangers in the All-Star game already on the field. And he's a Ranger too. So that made it the third time ever that 6 players for the same team were on the field at the same time during an All-Star game. So while Eovaldi was pitching, that was the third time ever that this happened. This ties an All-Star game record, and these 2023 Rangers joined the 1939 Yankees and the 1951 Dodgers, Brooklyn Dodgers. 1951 Brooklyn Dodgers. So think about that. This hasn't happened in 70 years. 6 All-Stars from the same team on the field at the same time. Since the 1951 Brooklyn Dodgers. Jackie Robinson was on that team. Like, that's pretty crazy. Wild stuff there. And while Eovaldi was mic'd up, Corbin Carroll just stepped up to the plate for his first career All-Star at-bat, and he was mic'd up. Like, what? You're mic'd up in your first career All-Star at-bat while the pitcher's also mic'd up? Pretty crazy stuff to watch. He ended up grounding out to first. But, I mean, geez, Corbin, geez, make yourself at home, kid. I guess so. He's in Washington. He's 11 miles from his home. Geez, crazy stuff. Crazy stuff there, though. So then moving on to the bottom of the second inning. So crazy eventful first 2 innings here. Yandy Diaz hit a homer in his first career All-Star game at bat to make it 1-0 American League. And it was actually the 100th home run hit by the American League in All-Star game history. So a little bit of history there for Yandy Diaz. And he's also got a little bit of personal stuff going on this week. So he flew in to Seattle late Monday. And he flew out after the All-Star game on a red-eye after the game Tuesday because his wife is supposed to give birth today. This video is recording on Wednesday. So he had a ridiculous, he came in late, probably was so jet lag tired, came in from Florida because he's on the race, Tampa Bay race. He goes in, plays the All-Star game, homers in his first career All-Star game at bat for the 100th career home run, or 100th home run hit by the AL ever. And then he takes a red eye right back to Florida because his wife's about to give birth. So, Yandy, what a couple of days for you. Pretty cool stuff there. Josh Young was the first Rangers rookie ever to start the All-Star game, and the second NL rookie third baseman ever to start the All-Star game. The first since Eddie Kazak in 1949. So, pretty crazy stuff there. That's about 70, 75 years ago from now, too. Crazy stuff. And so then, moving on to the top of the fourth inning, Luis Arias came up for his second at-bat, obviously, right? And what did he do? He smoked the first pitch into right field for an RBI single to tie the game at 1. And that was his second hit of the day. And it was only the second pitch he saw. So both times he came up, first pitch swinging, first pitch line drive, smoked. Second time RBI to tie the game. So the MLB hit leader, first player to hit 383 or higher. Highest batting average at the All-Star break since 2000. Just continues doing what he does. Smoking singles, and he did his fish thing. And even though John Jay wasn't coaching first, he smacked that guy right in the chest. So that was fun to watch too. Cool stuff there. So then Arias was on first, and he tried to steal. So it was a lot of people were trying to steal. It was kind of crazy. And Jonah Heim, another former Athletic, hosed him at second base. And this was the first time that multiple runners were thrown out in an All-Star game since, I believe, 2008. So it was the first All-Star game with multiple caught stealings since 2008. And both of those caught stealings were done by former Oakland Athletics. Jonah Heim, the second one, and Sean Murphy, the first one. So pretty crazy stuff there. Wild. And so in the top of the fifth inning, I didn't even realize this until very late, which is bad for me because I mean, look at this. I got Maddie, I got Raleigh, I got my shirt on. But the A's fan base and the same nonprofit organizations that set up the reverse boycott in Oakland for June 13th, we're trying to set up a similar thing for the All-Star game, where the entire stadium stands up silently for the first step out of the fifth inning, and then after it's concluded, you can't tell the team. It didn't happen to the extent of that, obviously, because it's not Oakland, it's not the Coliseum, not everyone's passionate like that. But it did have a very good, even though they cut to Shohei, you could still hear the chant in the background after Corbin Carroll struck out in the fifth inning by Carlos Estevez struck him out. You could hear it in the background. So very good for Oakland, very good for everything, and I hope Manfred and John Fisher heard it. So while that was happening, though, they put a graphic on the screen that said Shohei became the third player in MLB history with 3+ hits as a starting pitcher 3 times, 3 or more times. So he's going to do it again. He almost hits for the cycle when he pitches every other time. So it's getting ridiculous. Shohei, there's too many stats. It's insane. So pretty cool stuff there from A's fans and obviously from Shohei. And then there was another highlight there where, I'm going to pull it up here. I believe this was the top of the, bottom of the fifth inning. Because, so in the National League, Austin Riley got subbed in, Matt Olson got subbed in, this guy right here, and Ozzie Albies got subbed in. So the Braves had the entire infield was Atlanta Braves. Third, second, short, first. All of them Atlanta Braves. So during that inning, with the entire Atlanta Braves lineup playing the infield, there was a slow roller hit to Austin Riley at third by Josh Young. Just a little tapper down the third baseline. And Riley comes charging in, makes a barehanded play, throw a little scoop, a little short, and Olson makes this ridiculous scoop to dig it out on the other half. So what a crazy third highlight reel play of this, the highlight reel defensive play of this All-Star game. What a throw there from Riley. And look at this dig from Olson. That's tough to do. Maybe a backhand, but still, nonetheless, that's a platinum glove level play. Attaboy Matty, great work there. That's crazy stuff. I love it. Represent former Oakland, I guess. So, then, I believe in the bottom of the sixth inning is when Brent Rooker made his first career All-Star at-bat, right? He stepped up to the plate while they were interviewing Juan Soto and Wright, and Brent Rooker came up for his first career All-Star game at-bat. And they were asking Juan Soto a couple questions, and then they cut to Rooker. They said, Oakland Athletics, first career All-Star appearance. And then it kind of got silent for a second, and all you could hear was, sell the team, sell the team, sell the team. They started the chant again when Brent Rooker started to hit, and they were doing it for 2 pitches because he only saw 2 pitches. And what did Brent Rooker do on that second pitch? He laced a double into the right center field gap over Soto's head, who was on the mic at the time, to set up. It hopped up over the wall, and it set up second and third to set up a sac fly from Bo Bichette to put up the go-ahead RBI to make it 2-1 AL. So pretty cool stuff there. Again, sell the team chants from Oakland A's fans and MLB fans. And Brent Rooker smoked a double during it. So I was pretty excited when that happened. I got up a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I was excited. Cool stuff there. And then obviously I just said Bo Bichette hit a sac fly to right field to drive in Salvi to take for the AL to take a 2-1 lead in the bottom of the 6th. Then we'll flash forward ahead to the 8th inning, top of the 8th inning, and Felix Bautista was on the mound. And Felix Bautista, I mean, every time I've seen him pitch this year, he's looked nasty. Like, he throws from up here, that ridiculous 102 from so high over his head, and he's got that ridiculous split. He's unhittable. Every time I've seen him this year, he's unhittable. That's why he's here. But he really struggled in this All-Star game, which is kind of surprising to see. Maybe it was nerves, maybe it was, I don't know, fatigue, I don't know. But he struggled, and even more surprisingly, he had his own catcher. Adley was catching him. So, weird to say, but he was facing Elias Diaz after, I mean, he was struggling to find the zone. He walked Castellanos in a very long at-bat, and he got 2-2 on Elias Diaz, and he threw this split that kind of just hung out there, and Elias Diaz smoked it. He hit it over the fence left field, 2-run home run to give the NL a 3-2 lead that would eventually be the go-ahead RBI, the go-ahead hit. That would stand as the go-ahead RBI. So Elias Diaz, this is the play that makes him the All-Star Game MVP, as it gives the NL a 1-run lead in the top of the 8th inning. So pretty crazy stuff there, as one of the more surprising players you could have picked to win this year's All-Star Game takes one of the most dominant pitchers in the league deep to go up in the All-Star Game. So crazy stuff. And they ended Juan Soto's interview during that inning. Like, they were talking to him for majority of the inning, and it was almost like they ran out of stuff to ask him. And it was the first time I've ever seen a mid-inning interview end before the inning ends. I don't know if you guys ever seen that, but that's crazy. Let me know if you've ever seen that before. But that was the first time I've ever seen them stop interviewing somebody during an inning. Crazy stuff. So then they brought in Kenley Jansen, and a person who knows Kenley pretty well, Will Smith, who caught him for the first couple years of his career, took second in the 8th inning on the first pitch that Kenley threw. And he was the 3rd catcher with a stolen base in the All-Star game ever. So pretty cool stuff there from Will Smith. But Kenley didn't matter for him. He struck out, I don't know who it was, but he struck him out on 3 pitches, so it didn't really matter there. And then for the 9th inning this was still the 8th inning, sorry. Bottom of the 8th inning, Josh Hader was mic'd up on the mound. And that was really cool to see. And Ozzie Albies at second base was mic'd up at the same time. So that was very entertaining to watch. Cool stuff there from Josh Hader. Josh Hader was really cool to listen to while he was pitching. Another cool thing that you could watch, like when you go back. And then Brent Rooker came up again. And I don't know what was going on with Brent Rooker in this All-Star game, but he was lacing balls off of Hader. He came off of Hader, and he laced one right at Riley, who caught it, threw it back to first, and Alonso dug it out to make a double play. So that was another highlight we had there. So a lot of highlights in this All-Star game. Crazy stuff going on. And Riley, with his second great defensive play, and Pete Alonso picked him up there with a nice scoop on the back end. Pretty cool stuff there. And then the bottom of the 9th of the All-Star game. So 2 outs, 1-run lead for the National League, Craig Kimbrell on the mound. And it was almost like, it was almost like that last at-bat of the WBC when Trout came up to face Ohtani. And it almost worked just like that, because with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th, in a 1-run game, Craig Kimbrell eventually walked Kyle Tucker in a very good at-bat by Kyle Tucker. So Kyle Tucker was a tying run, which led the winning run come up to the plate in Julio Rodriguez, and the crowd went absolutely nuts. They wanted Julio to hit the walk-off home run. I wanted Julio to hit the walk-off home run. That would have been awesome. The crowd was going nuts for him. Julio, Julio. That chant again ringing through the stadium. Full sold-out crowd. Julio ended up working a very good walk to make it first and second, but I mean, Julio, that was it right there, dude. And then Kimbrell ended up K-ing Jose Ramirez to get the NL's first win since 2012 and snap that 9-game losing streak that I mentioned before. Still, after this, the American League leads the all-time All-Star Game Series, 47 wins, 44 losses, and 2 ties. And is the first All-Star Game since 2008 with multiple caught stealings. I said that earlier. And it was the first time 2 players with the same last name hit a home run in the All-Star Game, Yandy and Elias Diaz. And Elias Diaz eventually became the MVP. And Justin Steele was the second pitcher to appear in the All-Star Game on their birthday. And the winning pitcher was Camilo Doval, making it the last time. So Camilo Doval, the San Francisco Giant, gets the win for the National League. And the last time the National League won was 2012, and Matt Cain got the win. So 2 times in a row that a San Francisco Giant got the win in the All-Star Game. Last 2 times the National League won. So pretty cool stuff there. All right, and that will do it for our All-Star Break week recap. It's a pretty eventful All-Star break, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the break and are looking forward to next season. The second half of the season. So, now, before we start talking about wrapping up the first half and my next end of the season predictions, let's talk about the MLB Stat Leaders at this point in the season, at the halfway point, at the All-Star break. So we'll start with the batting leaders. Batting average, obviously, is Luis Urias. His batting average right now is .383, which I touched on earlier, is the highest batting average at the All-Star break by any player since 2000. So pretty cool stuff there. Ronald Acuna Jr. with his .331 batting average, pretty cool stuff there. Yandy Diaz, he's leading the American League with .323, who also hit a home run in the All-Star game, obviously. We talked about that. Freddie Freeman hitting .320 right behind him, and then Bo Bichette at .317. Moving along to home runs, obviously, Shohei Ohtani leads the league, leads the universe, leads the world, everything, with 32 home runs. Matt Olson, his 29 home runs lead the National League, and he has been very good this year. Matty, I hope you get more recognition than you get, because I feel like he's got 75 RBIs or something. Like, I'll get to that. But, I mean, this guy is having an unbelievable slugging year. And then 3 players are tied with 26 home runs here. Mookie Betts, who was my home run derby pick, didn't pan out. Pete Alonso, 26 home runs as well. And Luis Robert Jr., all 3 of those dudes home run derby participants. So 26 home runs apiece. So MLB RBI leaders, Adolis Garcia leads the league with 75. Then Matty O again, 72. Shohei, obviously, 71. Rafael Devers at 70. And Naylor at 64. So then hit leaders, Luis Urias, obviously, leading the league at 126. Bo Bichette right behind him at 122. Acuna right there, 119. Freddie, 114. And then Lane Thomas, the young Washington National, 107 hits already. So even though the Nationals are not great, I mean, they're better than most people would think, maybe. And he's better than a lot of people would think. So then we'll move to stolen bases. With the new rules and all the new stuff, stolen bases have been up very drastically. So the leader this year, throughout the halfway point, is Esteury Ruiz, the Oakland Athletic. He's got 43 stolen bases so far, which is already the Oakland A rookie single-season record. So hopefully he'll keep expanding that. He's actually on the injured list right now. But hopefully he'll get that shoulder figured out, and he'll be back soon. National League leader, Ronald Acuna Jr., right on the heels of Esty, 41. And Ronald Acuna is just on a different level. Then there's a pretty decent drop-off here between 2 and 3. Wander Franco, 28, so pretty decent gap there. Bobby Witt Jr. at 27, and then the rookie sensation who started in the All-Star game, Corbin Carroll. So then we'll move on to the pitching leaders. Win leaders, we have 3 people tied for the league lead in 11. One of them was the National League All-Star Game starter, Zach Allen, Spencer Strider of the Atlanta Braves, and Shane McClanahan, who leads the American League with 11. So they all have 11. And the last 2 on this list both have 10. Nathan Eovaldi and Zach Eflin. So pretty close race there for the for the league win total. So we'll see what happens there. We'll move over to ERA. Framber Valdez actually is leading the league in ERA, 2.51. Shane McClanahan is right on his heels at 2.53. Right behind him, Kershaw, 2.55. Justin Steele, 2.56. And then Nathan Eovaldi at 2.83. We'll move on to the save leaders in the MLB. Jordan Romano, Camilo Doval, and Alexis Diaz are all tied with 26. So pretty tight stuff here. Emmanuel Clase right behind them, but all with 25. And then Felix Bautista, 23. Strikeout leaders, Spencer Strider, who's just on a ridiculous strikeout pace, has 166. Kevin Gausman, 153. Pablo Lopez, 138. Blake Snell, 132. And Shohei Ohtani also has 132. And then the quality start leaders, Kevin Gausman, Marcus Stroman, Logan Webb, and George Kirby, all are tied for the league lead with 14, followed by Garrett Cole with one less at 13. So those are the stat leaders so far. We'll see how much that changes or stays the same throughout the second half of the season. And we'll keep that updated for you. We'll keep tracking that, see what's going on there. So then we're going to talk about the standings so far at the All-Star break. So we'll start with the historic first half that's been going on in the Eastern divisions. So the American League East. This is the first time in the history of baseball that all teams in a division have been over 500 at the All-Star break. So division play started in 1969. So this is the first time ever that every team in one division is over 500 at the break. And the Red Sox, who are in last in this division, are 5 games over 500. So that shows you how good this division is. Not just over 500, but they're 5 games over 500. And they're in last. Like, they'd be leading the American League Central by 6 games. Like, it's getting insane. It's getting insane. If they can keep this pace up and finish the entire season with a winning record for the entire division, that would be unheard of. Because this already is unheard of. So, the Red Sox, speaking of the Red Sox, they've been extremely hot on offense. Very, very hot on offense, led by Jarren Duran, who has been tearing the cover off the baseball. So, 5-game win streak going to the break. They're only 1 game behind the Yankees now. So, like, I mean, anything can happen in this AL East. Everybody's within 10 games of each other. So they finished off a sweep of the A's Sunday, powered by Masataka Yoshida's go-ahead home run in the bottom of the 8th inning. And if any of you didn't see that, he hit this home run on a pitch that was 3.86 feet off the ground at his neck. And he poked it over the monster in left field. So he's a great hitter. We all saw that during the WBC, and he's continuing to show that for the first half. That was a person I left off my snub list that I regret doing now, because that dude should have been in the All-Star game the other day in Seattle. So we touched on the Yankees. The Yankees have been playing awful since Judge got hurt. Their offense has been absolutely horrendous, like ridiculously bad. And they fall behind the Blue Jays, and they dropped into 4th place now in the AL East, and they're out of wild card contention now. Like, so they're on the outside looking in at the break, which is not what the Yankees would have saw coming. So the Yankees can't hit the ball without Aaron Judge. They fired their hitting coach, Dylan Lawson. And this is the first time a midseason change was made, I guess, on the coaching staff in the entire Brian Cashman era, which is a long time. So that's pretty crazy to hear. He's replaced by Sean Casey, former Detroit Tiger, who has that infamous clip of him grounding out to the left fielder. Yes, grounding out to the left fielder. He thought the third baseman caught a liner, but he didn't. The ball trickled to the left fielder, and Sean Casey just kind of stood at the plate. And after he realized that it was a base hit, he started running to first, but he got hosed by the left fielder. So, pretty crazy stuff. I think that's funny to bring that up, that he's the new hitting coach for the Yankees. But maybe he can turn something around. Anthony Volpe, the rookie shortstop for the Yankees, he has 13 home runs right now at the All-Star break. So that's the 3rd most ever by a Yankee rookie at the break, behind only Aaron Judge when he hit freaking 30 in 2017, and Gleyber Torres when he hit 15 in 2018, excuse me, sorry. So crazy stuff. Only time that this ever happened was Judge in 30 in 2017 and Gleyber in 2018. So Volpe, despite having a very tough start, starting off hitting 180, 190, he's turned it around drastically. And he's got 13 home runs. He's hitting like 225, 230 at the break. So if he continues to hit, he's going to be fine. So heading up to Canada, we'll talk about the Blue Jays. So they gained ground in the division by going ahead of the Yankees because they've been playing so bad. But they gained ground in this division even though they got no hit this weekend. So they got no hit by the Tigers, the one I touched on in the recap, this week recap. But they still won that series. They won the day before the no-hitter, like 12-2. They get no hit, and then the next day they had a crazy comeback win. They didn't score any runs until the 7th. They scored 1. They were down 3-1, and then Danny Jansen hit a 2-run homer with 2 outs in the 9th to tie the game, and then they ended up winning in extras. So maybe the Blue Jays can take that momentum of that, Vladdy winning the home run derby, and then take it into the second half and keep going. But the Orioles, after about a week and a half of a little bit of a struggle compared to how they have been playing, turned it right back around, or right on the right foot again, as they're only 2 games behind the Rays now. So they have a 5-game cushion between themselves and the Blue Jays, and they're only 2 games behind the Rays. So that's not that much. Like that's going to be a close race. We'll see how that goes. They finished off a sweep of the Twins before the All-Star break, and Adley hit a career-long 461-foot bomb to get ready for the home run derby, and we saw how that prepared him because he did very, very good in that home run derby. So the Rays, they just lost 2 out of 3 to the Braves, who is now the best team in baseball right before the All-Star break. They lost 2 out of 3 starting Friday. And they fell back to earth very, very hard after their different start that they had, otherworldly start. So keep an eye on the Rays, keep an eye on the Orioles, because we'll see what happens there. So moving on to the National League East, the Braves continue to just rip the cover off the baseball and play at an unbelievable pace. So they had that ridiculous June, right? And they just continue to make it better and better and better and better. So they set a franchise record with 26 straight games with a home run. And keep in mind, that was the last game of the before the All-Star break on Sunday. So that streak is still active. They could still continue that. So it's 26 straight games with a home run, franchise record. They're MLB's only 60-win team at the break. So they're the best team in the league. And they set an MLB record with 169 home runs at the All-Star break. So they're on pace to hit the most home runs of any team ever. So that Braves team right now is looking very, very, very scary. We'll see what happens there. But the Marlins, though, I don't think anybody could have told you that this Marlins team was going to be this good. I know maybe somebody could say like they were going to be better, have some strides towards a better team for the future, but what they're doing right now is ridiculous. They are 14 games over 500 going into the All-Star break. They're 53-39. 53 wins is the most wins in Marlins franchise history before the All-Star break. The previous total was 50. So they're 3 games better than their last best wins before the All-Star break. And they've done that twice, right? The 2 times they've done that, the last time was 2008, and the other time was 1997. And that was the year they won their first World Series. So they have more wins than that 1997 team did in the first half of the season. So they look very, very good right now. Obviously, Luis Ariz hitting .383 brings that team to life. So that they are exciting. They have young pitching. They have a lot of offense. They have young stars all over the place. So hopefully they can keep this up, and we'll see what happens in the second half. And Jesus Sanchez hit a 461-foot homer on Sunday. It's the longest home run by a left-handed batter in the history of Lone Depot Park. So crazy stuff there. Probably a couple 500s by Stanton, but farthest home run in that stadium by a left-handed batter. So the Phillies, we'll talk about them. They've been playing a lot better baseball before the All-Star break. They're going to look to keep that up as they need to stay hot to stay with this, even the Marlins, but I don't know about the Braves. The Braves are just solidifying themselves as a different breed of team. But they got to stay with the Marlins. They got to stay as a wild card spot, but they solidified their spot as that. Castellanos has been the main bright spot of that team, and he's been really, really good. I mean, but the other stars need to come to life in the second half, though. Like, we need Trey. We need Schwarber to not be hitting 180. I know he's got the homers, but I mean, he can't be, like, it's insane. His ratio is not okay. Harper, I know he's still not fully healthy. I know he just got smoked in the arm with a pitch in the same elbow that he got Tommy John surgery on. But at some point, when he gets fully healthy, maybe when he starts playing first, when he can throw and when he can be back, maybe that's when we'll see Bryce Harper do what he does, because I can't imagine it doesn't happen, but it needs to happen. And moving on to the final two teams in the division, the Mets. I mean, they've been playing a little bit better since July started. We'll see as time will tell, because, I mean, the sun's starting to set. The sun's starting to set for the New York Mets. But ever since I said something bad about them last week. July happened, and they started out the month 6 for 6. And they won 7 games in June. So they're 1 win away from their entire month total in June already in July. So maybe I should shut my mouth. And I did say before that Brandon Nimmo was the only player helping the Mets get wins. And as soon as I said that, he went absolutely dormant at the plate. And now Francisco Alvarez has woken up. And he hit 4 homers in his last 5 games. So, I mean, he woke up and started winning games for the Mets single-handedly. But maybe he'll stop now because I said it. But hopefully not. He's been very good. The Mets, he's a very exciting player for the Mets to have. The Mets have a couple young players, him, Beatty, who are exciting and they could build upon, even though they have so many players in the highest payroll of all time. So one of those home runs that Alvarez hit was a game-tying home run with 2 strikes and 2 outs that sparked the game-winning rally last week in Arizona. So, I mean, it's pretty cool. Like, he's doing stuff that's working. I mean, they beat the Diamondbacks a couple times. Like, maybe that will change things, but we'll see after the break. And the Nationals have played better recently than throughout the rest of the season, but I mean, it's nothing to say that much about, but I mean, it's been better. They have a couple of good young pieces, like Alex Call, Lane Thomas. He's got the 5th most hits in the league. So, I mean, they just beat the Rangers in a series going into the All-Star break, so maybe they're fraud calling the Rangers, so we'll see. And Patrick Corbin became the 3rd pitcher since 1961 to open a game by striking out 4 straight All-Stars. And obviously that came in a game when he pitched against the Rangers, because those are the only team that are going to have that besides the Rays. I mean, not the Rays, the Braves. So we'll move over to the Central divisions, the tight Central races in these divisions. So we'll start with the AL Central. And as I talked about before, I touched on this. Every single team in the American League Central is either at or below 500. The Guardians are leading the division at the moment, and they're 500 right now. They lost their last game before the All-Star break to the Royals, despite winning the series. But, I mean, the AL Central is just like whoever's going to finish the season 500, they're going to win the division, and everyone else is going home, which is crazy to think about. Like, you just got to win 80 games, pretty much, 81, 82 games in that division, and you're in the playoffs, and that's it. Crazy. The Twins seem to be somewhat back on track last week. They were playing much better baseball, but I mean, I don't know what the heck happened. Like, they had a players-only meeting, and they came out of that playing good. They looked solid, but then they come in, it seemed like it was too good to be true, because they ended their first half with a sweep by the Orioles, and it was the last game of that series was a 15-2 blowout. So it's tough to read these American League Central teams, especially Minnesota and Cleveland, because, like, they're supposed to be the two that, like, one of them's supposed to run away at some point, but, like, the Tigers are still alive, and everyone still thinks the Tigers are terrible. So I don't know. Like, this is a crazy division to watch, especially because the American League East is so good. So it's wild. It's really wild. I mean, the Tigers have been a little bit better than some people would have thought, but I mean, it's like not great. But I mean, the Central's wide open, like I said. Like, they just made history last weekend. They threw the first combined no-hitter in Tigers history between Matt Manning, Jason Foley, and Alex Lang. And that adds to their 9 career franchise no-hitters. So maybe something happens. I don't know. But, like, the last 2 teams of this division are just like, I don't understand. The White Sox continue just to play tough baseball throughout the entire first half. Like, they have too much talent to be behind the Tigers, right? Way too much talent to be behind the Tigers. But I feel like I keep saying this, like the Mets, the Padres, but like when does it stop? Like it's crazy to me. And the Kansas City Royals are just as bad as the Oakland A's this year. They really are. Like if you've watched them play, they're just as bad as the A's. So getting away from that American League Central Division, we'll go over to a little bit more exciting National League Central Division. So the team leading this division is the Reds. The Reds have a one-game lead of the division, despite losing 2 of 3 to the Brewers to close out the first half. So the Reds are 23-7 since the call-up of Elly De La Cruz. And this dude just continues to do unthinkable things. He becomes the second player in the expansion era to steal 3 bases in 1 single plate appearance, which I touched on earlier. He's the first Reds player since 1919 to steal second, third, and home in the same inning. And to start the season, the Reds were 27-33. And then he gets promoted to the big leagues, and since then they're 23-7. And in he's played 23-7, so that's 30 big league games. In those 30 games, he's got 40 hits. He's got at least 40 hits and 15 steals. And he's the first player ever with those numbers in his first 30 career games. So Elly De La Cruz comes in to a struggling Reds team, under 500 Reds team. They're 23-7 since then, and De La Cruz is the first player in MLB history with at least 40 hits and 15 steals in his first 30 career Major League games. Oh yeah, and he just stole third and home on the same pitch. I don't know what else to say about this guy. Don't know what else to say about this guy. He's unbelievable. But despite Elly De La Cruz's unbelievable freak of nature habits, the Brewers beat him 2 out of 3. And they tightened the division. They went in down 2, now they're only down 1. So Willy Adames had 2 bombs, and Wade Miley had a good start on Sunday, so that propelled them to a win. Corbin Burns also had a good start in the series, so, they took the series. So the Brewers are sneaky. They're not as flashy as that Reds team, now that the Reds have like Elly De La Cruz and all these rookies producing for them. But the Brewers are just a consistent team that's always there running for the NL Central every year. And crazy enough, they just played a series to end the first half. The last series of the first half played against each other in Milwaukee. Now, they're going to play the first 3 games of the second half in Cincinnati against each other. I don't remember the last time I've ever seen that, the scheduling to happen like that, but that's pretty cool, pretty crazy. But then there's a little bit of a gap between the teams in the National League Central. And the third place team would be the Cubs. So the Cubs have been playing better lately. They just beat the Yankees 2 out of 3 in Yankee Stadium. And Friday night, I was there. That's where I got this bad boy, the Luis Severino bobblehead, the day after he gave up about 8 earned runs. It was the Cubs' first ever win in Yankee Stadium. That's crazy to me. They were 0-12 there previously, including if you include the World Series. But, I guess that makes sense because, AL East, National League Central, they don't play so often. But the Cubs and the Yankees are such storied franchises. I would think they've played more than 12 times ever. But nope, it was the 13th matchup between the two in Yankee Stadium. And it was the first time the Cubs ever won a game at any version of Yankee Stadium. Pretty crazy. The Cubs have been around since 1876. Yankees have been around since 1901. So wild. Jameson Taillon, the former Yankee, threw 8 scoreless innings and only gave up 1 hit. And he went into the game with a 6.93 ERA. So that shows you how the Yankees have been hitting lately. Cody Bellinger hit an absolute bomb into the second deck and pimped it so hard. And there's been a lot of talk that Bellinger is going to go to the Yankees. So we'll see what happens over the next couple weeks as the trade deadline approaches. And Carlos Rodon, that was his first start as a Yankee that day. He went 5 1/3 and gave up 2 earned runs. He gave up that homer to Bellinger and 1 more run on an RBI single. But, he had a pretty solid day. His velo was down, though. He did not look like the normal Carlos Rodon that I've seen in the past couple years, but that was the first time I saw him live. So hopefully he'll be back and better than that. So rounding out the Central, Pirates continue their recent struggles, and they're in danger of becoming sellers. And as you can see, I'm a big McCutchen guy. I've always been a McCutchen guy, and it's great to see McCutchen back in the Pirates uniform. but they're in danger of becoming sellers now at this trade deadline. And I don't want him to leave. Like, he's a perfect candidate. He's been having a very good year. He's hitting like 275. Perfect year, like a way better year than a lot of people expected from him. Like, I don't want him to leave. Like, Pirates, figure it out. Let's go. And in last place, the Cardinals, they already have 52 losses. The Cardinals, oh my gosh, like they're basically done already. It's the worst season in 30 years for the St. Louis Cardinals. Like, crazy stuff. So we'll move on from that. And the last division I have to talk about here would be the National League West, or the Western divisions. And my headline that I have for this one is back to normal in the West? Question mark? Maybe? I don't know. Because so far we've seen the D-backs and the Rangers have a pretty strong hold over both of the West divisions so far. But recent activity suggests that that might not hold up. So we'll see what happens. So the D-backs, they just won the series over the Pirates going into the All-Star break. Corbin Carroll hit a walk-off single on Saturday. And they kind of had a little bit of setback going into the break because they lost Sunday. And that loss on Sunday actually like held them fall into a tie of first place with the Dodgers. So the Dodgers had a very hot week, and they tied the D-backs. So Mookie and all the dudes, honestly, Freddie, JD, All-Stars, all the guys, they've been hot recently. The offense has been really hot in LA. Mookie hit his 9th and 10th leadoff homers this past week. That breaks the Dodgers' single-season record set by Jock Peterson. So Mookie, 10th leadoff homer, breaks the record for the Dodgers franchise record in a season, and before the All-Star break. And those 10 leadoff homers is tied for the most leadoff homers ever before an All-Star break in MLB history. And that's ties with Bobby Bonds. And he did that back in 1973. So you can't blame me for picking Mookie. Like, come on. You can't blame me for picking him in the Derby. He's got the power. He's hitting all these records. But he'll be good. He'll be back in the second half hitting homers. So the Dodgers could regain the lead soon and regain their regular season dominance that they have in the National League West. So the past 10 years, they've been the best team in the regular season every single year. So that could happen again soon. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on that. The Giants are also continuing to play much, much better than people would think they would. They're 8 games over 500. Like, I would not think that would be where they were sitting at the All-Star break going into this season. I mean, they've been having very good contributions from unexpected players. And some of them are former Mets that like are just random. J.D. Davis has been having a very good year. Michael Conforto, like, where did he come from? He wasn't even in the league last year. Like, that's crazy. Camilo Doval has been nasty. He got the win in the All-Star game yesterday. I watched him pitch for the Dominican Republic in the WBC, and it looks like he's just unhittable. His, like, gather step is, like, gliding. He looks like he's floating. And then his just lengthiness just floats things in there. And he's just so whippy. It looks like you can't even hit him. And Sunday, they played the Rockies. They finished up a series against the Rockies. San Fran did. And Logan Webb, he got his first career complete game shutout. And he looked nasty. He almost made it a Maddox game, but he threw just over 100. But he was nasty. And Webb also leads the league in innings pitched with 126. And so I don't know if you guys remember that clip about a month ago of Taylor Rogers throwing out his glove into the garbage. He got pulled out of a game. Not sure exactly what happened in that game, but he did not look too happy with himself. He just casually walked into the dugout, took off his glove, walked over to the garbage, tossed it in the garbage. Since that game, I guess he got a new glove after that, he's pitched in 26 games. He pitched in 23 and 2/3 innings, right? He's got a .38 ERA. He's only given up 1 run since then, and he's got 33 strikeouts. So, I don't know. I guess when you're struggling, just throw out your glove or your bat and then get a new one, and everything will be fine. But that's exactly what Taylor Rogers did, and I guess it worked. So, Taylor Rogers, keep it going, dude. And the Giants pitching staff and the bullpen have been very, very good recently. So that's what's keeping the Giants afloat right now. And the Padres, still disappointing, 4 games under 500, despite playing a little bit better recently. Manny got hot. Manny just woke up. We talked about it earlier that he was the National League Player of the Week going into the All-Star break. But, I mean, the other stars need to follow. Like, it's only like one at a time. Like, they can't do it one at a time. They need them all to happen together. Snell's been pitching great. He's got a lot of strikeouts, but they need the rest of the staff. It's like the hitters take turns, and Snell's been the only consistent pitcher. So it's like that's not going to work. Third in the MLB in payroll, 4 games under 500 is not going to cut it. So sun's starting to set on them too. We'll see what happens there. They could become sellers. Last night in the All-Star game post-game show, Jeter, of course Jeter said this, but Jeter thinks that the Yankees should try to get Juan Soto if the Padres don't start winning over the next couple weeks. So could get interesting over there, but we'll see. And I mean, the Rockies are kind of just sitting at the bottom of the division. And Sunday, tough scene. Kyle Freeland dislocated his shoulder, trying to dive for a bunt, I believe, or maybe just a swinging bunt. But that was a tough scene, tough to watch there. But hopefully he'll be okay soon. So the other West, the AL West, the Rangers, with their 5 All-Star starters and the 6 on the field at once to tie the record, they're still out in front of the Astros, but they're closing that gap. They lost their last series of the first half to the Nationals, and the Nationals are not supposed to beat the Rangers in the series. So they're only 2 games ahead of the Astros now. And speaking of those Astros, they're continuing to play good, and Jordan's hoping to come back soon. So that's dangerous. Jose Abreu has been hot ever since he was able to find his first homer of the season in Oakland. The pitching staff injuries have been concerning, though. They have been kind of banged up with the pitching staff. But they're still playing good baseball. And if they can continue to play good and surge, they could put both of these West divisions back in order if the Dodgers take ahead, too. So Jordan comes back. They get a couple pitchers back. I think same old Astros. We'll see. Seattle just jumped ahead of the Angels, which is crazy to say. The Mariners have started playing good baseball after they started the season very, very bad. They just won a series in Houston, and they haven't done that in a while. So good job for that. The offense is starting to come along as the pitching stays solid. Castillo, Gilbert, and Kirby are all pitching at a very high level. I mean, it's the offense that needs to come around, and it has recently. That's why they've been playing good. And Julio joins Ichiro as the only 2 Mariners to make an all-star team in their first 2 seasons with the team. So 2 in a row, only 2 people have done it, Julio and Ichiro. And the Angels, obviously, they're struggling. They fell behind the Mariners, but their injuries just continue. Mike Trout, his injury kicked off a brutal stretch for the Angels. Ohtani hurt his finger after that, a little cracked fingernail. Rendon fouled the ball off his shin, out. Joe Adele came up to replace Trout. He got hurt, and they're 1-9 in their last 10 going into the break. And I'm about to go out there on Friday. So I'm going to go see their next 6 games, and I'll be out there with Bobby V. So we'll see if they can turn it around. But Ohtani just continues to do what Ohtani does. He had his 32nd home run of the year and a triple in the last game of the first half on Sunday. And he joins Babe Ruth, who did this twice, and Willie Mays as the only 2 players in MLB history to have 31 or more home runs and 6 or more triples before the All-Star break. So Ohtani just continue. No matter what the Angels do, no matter what they're doing around him, he just will not stop. And I really hope I get to see some cool stuff this next week out there. I hope I get to see him pitch a good game and have some good games on offense. So we'll see. And moving on to the A's. Oh, boy. Their horrendous season just continues as they get swept by the Red Sox to enter the midway point. And it's just been tough. Like Oakland pitching is just continuing to not get it done. And they can't hold on any offense, no matter who they're playing. It's really bad. I mean, a few bright spots, MLB steals leader, Estier Ruiz, but he's on the IL with a shoulder injury. Brent Rooker, he's been good. He had a good All-Star game. He smoked the ground rule double. He got to sell the team chance going in the All-Star game. He also smoked the ball at Austin Riley. Ended up being a double play, but he hit it hard. He's good. Ryan Noda, he's leading the American League in walks. So, good for him, but A's are still dismal. Okay, so we'll move on to our last segment here. And now that we've talked about all the divisions, I gave you a little bit of insight on everything that's going on right now. I'm going to make a prediction for each division here. So, started going in order the way I talked about them. The American League East. This might be a hot take, but I think the Orioles are going to do it. I think the Rays have been faltering heavily ever since their very, very good start. And the O's have just been plugging along, playing consistent baseball the whole season. And I just think it's going to continue. And they've only got a 2-game gap right now between the two. The Rays are 2 games ahead of the Orioles. but I really believe that the Orioles are going to continue to play good baseball and jump them at some point. And they have so many young stars: Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Yennier Cano, Felix Bautista. Like, it's all over the place. Santander is good. Santander is maybe not that young, but he's very, very good. And their powerful young bullpen of those two guys I mentioned, Yennier Cano and Felix Bautista, is the best 1-2 punch in any bullpen in the MLB. So if they can continue with those guys and their young stars, I think they're going to take over the Rays and win that American League East. National League East, surprise, surprise, I got the Braves. It's got to be the Braves. Like, there's no way. I don't know. Like, what's going to slow them down? I don't know. They're on pace to break the MLB record in home runs. They had, it seems like, 12 All-Stars. I mean, I got the Braves winning the National League East. I don't know who's going to catch them, unless it's that Marlins team goes on a special, special run. All right, so the American League Central. This one's kind of a toss-up. I don't really know. I'm going to go with the Twins. No team in this division has really stood out this year. But, I mean, I feel like that the Twins should have the most potential to pull it away. Unless Jose Ramirez can spark that Cleveland offense just to do it himself. But, I mean, you can check back at me at the end of the season and see how wrong or right I am about these. But I got the Twins in the Central. Going to the NL Central, I think you got to go with the Reds. I think there's way too much excitement over there in Cincinnati. It's becoming must-watch baseball. Like, you want to go to the... Like, they're selling out that crowd every single night. It's crazy. They're selling out Great American Ballpark like nothing I've ever seen. These young stars are making insane impacts. Elly De La Cruz, obviously. Spencer Steer. Matt McLean. Like, these guys are playing out of their mind. Like, Andrew Abbott, too. He's having a historic start to his pitching season. All right, unbelievable. So these young stars for the Reds, I think, are just going to continue to play well and push them to a division win. And then we'll move on to the West divisions, the last two divisions. I'm going to ride with the D-backs. I don't know why. I just got a feeling that this young talent is going to keep them hot. Their youth is going to keep them going. They got a nice little... Like, they're deep. They have a nice plethora of young talent that they can bring off the bench. They can sub in and out. They have a lot of stuff going on. And they've had good, consistent pitching from Zach Allen. And they need that to continue. He is very key. Because the other ones have been a little bit shaky. Merrick Kelly's been pretty good. But he needs to stay healthy and play well. So because they have to outplay the Dodgers. Like, that's going to be tough. I think, though, in my opinion, the Dodgers have looked a little bit different. In my opinion. So I think this is the year that they're dethroned. So I'm going with the D-backs in the National League West. And the last division, you can't have both Western divisions have upsets. It's got to be the Astros. I know the Rangers have been great. They have so many All-Stars. But the Dodgers and the Astros can't both lose their division races. Like, right? There's no way. So I'm going with the Astros to take theirs. I think the Dodgers are going to have a stumble. They are still going to make the playoffs. But I think the Astros are going to come back and win their division. They've just been playing so much better over the past month. And with Jordan back, they're just going to be back to the Astros that everyone knows and everyone hates. So just wait for it. I'm preparing myself because I'm so tired of that Astros team. But they're coming back and they're never going anywhere. And it's really tough. So those are my division predictions there. I got the O's in the East. In the East, I got the O's and the Braves. The Central, I got the Twins and the Reds. And the West, I got the D-backs and the Astros. So we'll see how I do. Come back at the end of the season. We'll see how many I got right. But that's about all the time we got for this week. And you can follow me at Framp_4 on Twitter. And make sure to follow Bobby Valentine Sports Academy on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And visit the BV Academy website so you can get all your Bobby Valentine's knowledge and cool content. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll be here next week. Come in next time, and see ya. Peace.